Welcome to you as well. My name is Mike. I'm the lead pastor here at Grace, and it's really good to see all of you guys. I have a suspicion that if you've been coming to Grace, I feel really honestly in my spirit that God is up to something. God is doing something. Now, can I tell you exactly what that is? Not really. And I'm saying that just to be upfront and honest with you. Like God says, in His Word, He's like, I'm doing something. Don't you perceive it? And I'm like, my prayer is just, God, help me perceive what it is because I want to be on board with what you're up to. So if you're here today, you're in a really good spot to be a part of what God is doing and praying and seeing and being a part of how He's moving in our area and through this church. And we've been talking about that in a series we just started a few weeks ago called Never the Same. And this idea of never the same is we've been talking, as we get towards Easter, just coming up in a couple weeks, we've been looking at what does it look like to encounter Jesus? Because when we encounter Jesus, nothing stays the same in our lives. Now, it might be a drastic change, it might be small incremental changes, but we're never the same once we fully encounter Jesus and see how He can work in our lives. Now, when we do this, it's important to realize that there's opportunities to encounter Jesus around us all of the time. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever had an opportunity presented to you that you had to decide in the moment if you're going to take it or not? And it wasn't one of those opportunities that was going to last forever. You kind of had it come before you and had to make a decision. And maybe you passed on it and you wished you hadn't. One of the things that popped in my mind when I thought about the idea of opportunity is this thing right here. Have you guys remember this idea? I remember Blockbuster Video, right? Some of you younger guys are like, Block what? I don't know what that, you used to have to go places to rent movies? I don't understand. It didn't just stream everywhere, right? You used to have to go to a store and you used to have to pay like $5 to rent a video on these things called cassettes, maybe DVD, right? And this would be the main chain that was doing that. They were killing it. They were the top of the chain forever, especially in the 90s. If you guys remember what that was like. You go there, you rent movies from Blockbuster. Now here's the thing about Blockbuster. The CEO of Blockbuster was presented an opportunity. I don't know if many of you know about this. He was presented an opportunity that he passed on that he is still kicking himself for. Because in 2000, a guy met with the CEO of Blockbuster. And this guy was the CEO of probably something you've never heard of at this point, Netflix. The CEO of Netflix in 2000 went to the CEO of Blockbuster and said, hey, I want you to buy my company for $50 million. At the time, that opportunity to the CEO of Blockbuster seemed ridiculous because he's like, listen, no one's going to stream movies. No one wants movies delivered in their mailbox. People are always going to want to come to a store. People are always going to want to come to a place like this to get their movies. That'll never catch on. That was what his idea was. So he turned the dude down. Well, we know how well that went for him, right? Because where do you see Blockbusters anymore? Nowhere. They're out of business. Where do you see Netflix? Everywhere, right? He had a chance to buy it for $50 million. Netflix right now is worth about $33 billion. The last I looked it up. So that was an opportunity that the CEO of Blockbuster missed, and it was right in front of him, and it would have changed everything for Blockbuster had they jumped on that when it was before them. And see, opportunities are things we have all the time, and I think a lot of times we miss those opportunities because God gives us opportunities every day to encounter Him. He gives us opportunities to encourage someone who's down. He gives us opportunities to pray for someone who's going through a really hard time. He gives us opportunities to help those who need help, to show love in an area where a lot of people are not showing love, to show care and compassion when all you see is judgment or just, apathy towards other people. We have opportunities around us every single day. And see, a good definition of opportunity, I'm going to go back to that. I'll leave that there. A good definition of opportunity is simply this. An opportunity is a favorable time or occasion when we are in a position to make a decision that will impact our lives in a positive way. So that's a good definition of opportunity. It's a chance. When we're faced with a situation and an occasion that will impact our lives in a positive way. And so we see opportunities all around us that can impact our lives in a positive way, but not just for our good, for the sake of the kingdom. For a way to tell people about Jesus, for a way to bring hope into people's lives. And maybe you can think of opportunities you see all the time around you. Maybe you can think of opportunities that you've passed up in that area to bless other people and to see them. And so we're going to actually look at a story today as we've been talking about stories of people who encountered Jesus. And we're going to look at the story of a guy who made the most of the opportunity he had to encounter Jesus. A guy who made the most of that opportunity in that moment to seize what God was doing, and it changed his life forever. And this story is going to be found in Mark chapter 10. So if you have your Bibles, you can turn there. I'm going to skip a bunch of this stuff. There's the definition of opportunity I was talking about. It's a favorable time or occasion. We're going to see that, a man grabbing that right now, starting in Mark chapter 10. Now, this is a story that you may be familiar with. If you've been at church, you've read your Bibles before, you've been around things. It's a story of a guy named blind Bartimaeus. This is one of my favorite stories in the Gospels, by the way. If you've heard this before, this is one of those ones I can read over and over again and come back to and be like, okay, God, you're still teaching me stuff through this story. So let's jump in this together and see how this guy made the most of his opportunity to encounter Jesus and how it changed everything for him. So starting in Mark chapter 10, verses 46, it says, "Then they reached Jericho." Now, that might not mean anything to you, but what you need to know before this story takes place is Jesus is traveling to Jerusalem. He's heading there for Passover. He's heading there for where he's going to go and end up eventually being arrested and crucified. He's on his journey to the cross when this story takes place. And he's passing through a town of Jericho, which is about 15 miles north of Jerusalem. So he's heading there, kind of following, and as he's traveling, before he gets to this story, you have a couple other stories, if you read Mark chapter 10, that you probably would be familiar with if you heard them. But right before he meets this blind guy, his disciples had come to him and argued with him about, okay, Jesus, you just told me you're going to the cross, but here's the thing. Can we be famous? It's essentially what his disciples come to him and said, listen, I know you're going and dying on the cross and sacrificing for everybody's sins, but really, can we sit at your right and your left hand? Can we be those famous people in the kingdom? Because that's really what we're concerned about. And Jesus had just gotten done telling his disciples, guys, you are missing the bigger picture here. You're not understanding what it means to really follow me. What it really means to be a part of the kingdom of God. What it really means to be a disciple is you're going to be a servant. You're not going to have authority to lord over people. You're going to go and you're going to help people. So that conversation took place with his disciples right before you had this encounter as they're traveling along the road. Now again, remember, it's biblical times. They're walking everywhere. They're traveling. They didn't get to call a Jerusalem Uber. Okay, so they couldn't just go from Jericho. They had to walk everywhere. And so they're traveling together, and as they walk, they're encountering people. And more people are starting to join in the parade. Okay, more people are starting to join in this people that are following Jesus to Jerusalem. And so they come to Jericho, they're passing through Jericho, and as Jesus and the disciples were now leaving Jericho and exiting, they had a large crowd following him. That's where that crowd came from. Like Jesus was kind of getting more and more popular, and people are just kind of starting to follow this guy who they'd heard more about. And as they travel, a blind beggar named Bartimaeus, which means son of Timaeus, was sitting beside the road. So you're introduced to this guy, this blind beggar named Bartimaeus. He's sitting there next to the road. Now, here's the thing. Bartimaeus, in the Bible, bar is just Greek. It means son of. So whenever you see somebody bar something, that means son of. So really that's what they tell you. It means son of Timaeus. Now, what you need to know is that word Timaeus in the Greek, the meaning of this guy's name actually means son of honor. So you have to understand the meaning of his name to understand just how kind of crazy it is that his name means son of honor, but where do we find him? He's sitting on the edge of the road begging, because that's where people that were outcast, that's where people who didn't belong, that's where people who were rejected by society, that's where they sat. They sat on the edge of the road. They sat on the side begging for anything people would give them. They were in that culture that was kind of considered where the trash was, where the people who were rejected. It's almost like when you drive down a highway through Philly now and you see all the garbage on the side of the roads, because everyone just kind of throws it out and that's where it goes. It was sort of similar back then. The sides of the roads as you're traveling, that's where the rejected stuff was. So this guy, Bartimaeus, son of honor, was not sitting in a very honorable place. And so Jesus is coming and they encounter this guy. When Bartimaeus heard that Jesus of Nazareth was nearby, he began to shout, "Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me." When he hears Jesus, when he hears about Jesus, he's blind. He didn't get to see Jesus. You got to understand, he just heard. And probably at this point, he'd heard of Jesus. He'd heard stories from his other friends, his other buddies. He heard people who were traveling up and down the road outside Jericho talking about this Jesus of Nazareth who did miracles and set people free. He'd probably heard rumors of this guy. And then as this crowd of people's coming, he heard that it was Jesus. And he thought, this is my moment. This is my opportunity. This is that thing. I'm not going to let this pass me by. And he starts shouting out from the side of the road. And again, he's blind, so he doesn't even know exactly where Jesus is. He's just like, I heard he's around. I'm gonna let him know I'm here. Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. See, the first thing we can learn from Bartimaeus when it comes to encountering Jesus is something we see right here, is that our courage has got to be greater than our condition. Our courage has got to be greater than our condition. See, Bartimaeus could have said, listen, I'm blind. We don't know if he was born blind or he had an accident or something happened, but either way, he was blind. And he could have sat there and said, you know what? This is as good as life is going to get. My condition is going to keep me here for the rest of my life. Whatever I have going on in my life is going to sideline me. God can't do anything else with me. I'm just going to sit here and beg for what I can until my life is over. He could have sat there and let his condition limit his encounter with Jesus and say, you know what? I can't do it at all anymore. But he didn't. His courage was greater than that limited him, and he was not afraid to reach out to Jesus and say, hey, I know you can change my life. I need to encounter you. I need you. I don't care what's limiting me. I'm coming to the one who has limitless power to change my life. And now maybe some of us are sitting in situations where we've allowed our conditions to limit our courage. And we said, you know what? I can't approach Jesus. What I have going on in my life, it's too big for Jesus. He'll never be able to use me like this. You know, maybe I'm not a good speaker, or I have this in my past, or I have this disability, or whatever your condition is. Maybe that's limited your courage to trust Jesus and to call out for him to help you. But if we're going to encounter him the way we're meant to encounter him, we got to raise our level of courage to say, you know what, no matter what's going on in my life that's holding me back, I know Jesus is the answer. I'm going to keep seeking it. I'm going to make sure that he hears me. Jesus! We're going to have courage that's greater than anything that holds us back. And in fact, I want to invite some friends of mine up right now to share a little testimony with you about that idea of having courage in the face of something that could be really zapping of courage. So I'm going to invite Rick and Deb up here. And some of you guys know Rick's story if you've been coming to the church. Rick has been dealing with some medical issues. He got diagnosed with cancer a little while ago, and many of you have been on this journey with them, praying for them and praying for his healing and praying for his recovery. And so I wanted them to give you a quick update about what God has done up to this point in his life. So go ahead, guys.
Thank you. Everybody hear me? So good morning. First of all, pray for me that I remember what I want to say to you today, because I am on the far side of 60 now, and it's not as easy as it used to be. But as Mike said, he asked us to come here today to update you, give you a little update on what's been going on with us in our lives, because many of you have shared this journey with us, have been part of this story, and have supported us in prayer and checked up on us, and I can't tell you how important that is for us. First of all, we believe in prayer. We believe that God hears us when we pray. We believe in the power of prayer and have been relying on that heavily. But for those of you who don't know the story, I'll just give you a little bit of a brief background of where we are. About 6.5 months ago, life was seeming normal, and Rick started having some discomfort, just gastrointestinal, not feeling well, that wouldn't go away no matter what we did. So we sought several doctors who ordered several tests, and the end result of that was the phone call that you never want to get. On August 21st, he was told he had cancer. He had a tumor in his esophagus, and it had unfortunately spread further than that into other parts of his body. And so, yes, we were devastated. Yes, we were shocked. Yes, we kind of lost all sense of normal. But through that, we've held on to faith, held on to each other, and done what you do. We have gone for treatment. Rick's been having chemo and radiation, and that's where we are today, but I'll turn it over to him to share with you where we are.
Yeah, in January, I'd been on the treatment since September, and in January, I had a PET scan that showed that the first treatment that I was on had stopped working. And if you ever saw a picture of a PET scan, everywhere there's cancer, it's a little glowing light. And it looked like a fireworks display inside me. Okay, it was in the tumor had reduced, but my liver and the lymph nodes were becoming very active. So they changed my medication, and I've been on it for a while. And Monday I had another a PET scan. And Tuesday we sat down with a doctor, and we were able to see these PET scans side by side. And I know it's because of the man that died on this cross, because that's where our faith has been. This PET scan showed one little glowing spot, one lymph node. The liver was clear, the other lymph nodes were clear, and the tumor was still clear. So we are making progress. I had sworn to Deb and a lot of my friends that I'm going to fight this until there's no fight left. And I really, truly feel that with God's help, we're getting a handle on this thing. And I continue to ask for your prayers because it's not over yet. I have a long way to go. But we're making progress, and I think we're getting a handle on it. And I just want to thank my church family, because I know all of you are my family, and it's important, the love that we get from you guys. It's really important for us. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys. Yeah. Praise God, right? Like when I got the report, when Deb sent it out, I'm like, you guys got to share that with people. I'm like, that's not something you just kind of email. That's something you tell people, because we've been praying over Rick. We've been trusting the Lord is doing something, and he is. And like Rick said, courage to trust God despite what's going on. Courage to go after Jesus despite your condition. You know, in Psalms, a reminder of this verse, be strong and let your heart take courage, all you who wait for the Lord. Man, as we're waiting for the Lord, as we're going after what Jesus says, that courage is huge. To say, God, no matter what's going on, I'm going to trust you. It's exactly what we see blind Bartimaeus doing in this story, and saying, I don't care what has held me back the rest of my life, God, I'm coming after you with all the courage I have. I don't care what is limiting me, I'm going to trust you. So the question is, what is limiting your courage today? What would you identify as your condition that's keeping you from having the courage to go after Jesus? Would it be financial? Would it be physical? Would it be spiritual? Would it be family situations? Whatever you can associate with, we all have reasons we could look to. But are we looking to Jesus and say, no, my courage is going to be greater than my condition? We see Bart showing us that in this story. But not only that, he goes on to show us more. Because our courage must be greater condition. But then as the story goes on in Mark 10, people, as he's crying out for Jesus, you got to get this picture. As people are walking on the wrong road, Bart's on the side of the road. And as he's calling out to Jesus, you know what people are doing to him? Dude, shh. Like, be quiet. Like, essentially, like, don't bother Jesus. Just shut up. Just stop. Like, leave him alone. The dude's busy. He's going someplace important. He doesn't have time for you. Essentially, it's what they say to them. They're like, be quiet. Many of the people yelled at him. They got to get the story. They didn't walk up to him and be like, Bart, shh, you're being rude, dude. No, they were like, be quiet. Knock it off. Because they didn't want him to bother Jesus. But you know what he did, and I love his response? He just got louder. It's like being at an Italian party, right? Like if someone gets loud, you just get louder. That's how it works if you're in an Italian family, right? You just shout over the person who's louder than you. Listen, I married into a family that's very Italian, and the first couple times I went to gatherings, I was like, whoa. I would talk, they would talk, and they weren't mad at each other. It just got louder and louder and louder, right? He's like, listen, you can tell me to be quiet all you want, but this is my moment. This is my opportunity. I'm not going to let Jesus get past me, so you tell me to be quiet all you want, but I'm just going to get louder. I'm going to make sure that Jesus hears me, because I know that I need him. And he shouted even louder, Son of David, have mercy on me. Jesus, I need you. And look what happens. When Jesus heard him, he stopped and said, tell him to come here. So they called the blind man. Cheer up, they said. Come on, he's calling you. Don't you love the switch in the people? Where all of a sudden, like, before Jesus talks, they're like, dude, be quiet. Right? Don't bother Jesus. All of a sudden, Jesus is like, hey, come here. They're like, hey, you should be happy. God's calling you. Come on, buddy, let's go. What? I would be so mad. Like, you just told me to be quiet a second ago, and now Jesus speaks, and now I'm cool? I mean, come on. But what was happening there? How many of you guys know that sometimes the people that are going to discourage you in your life are exactly the people God's going to use to bring you to himself? The people that were trying to limit Bart's experience with Jesus are exactly the people Jesus used to get him to come closer. And here's the thing about what we learn from Bartimaeus in this part of the story, that our desire has got to be greater than our discouragement. Right? Our courage has got to be greater than our condition, but our desire has got to be greater than our discouragement, because people are going to discourage you when it comes to Jesus. Some of you guys are in families where you're the only believer, and every time you get together, people are trying to discourage you from what you know is real. People are trying to tell you, you can't believe in Jesus. Come on, dude, it's the 21st century. Like what's the deal? We have science, we have all this stuff. Like, Jesus isn't real. Like, why waste your time going to church on a Sunday? You could sleep in, you could go to the beach, you could stay home. Why bother doing something like that? Just take it easy, right? People are going to discourage you when it comes to Jesus. Scripture says that all over the place when you read it. It's like people they're gonna try to take you away, not push you towards, right? There's going to be discouragement that you find. And you know what? The worst case, sometimes those are other believers. Sometimes those are other Christians who are going to tell you, listen, you're going hard after Jesus, fit in, or please all the people in my life telling me I shouldn't be doing this stuff. I want Jesus so much that it doesn't matter what the discouragement coming at me is, I'm going to go after him with everything I have. My desire is going to be greater than my discouragement. See, A.W. Tozer has this quote that I love. He says, they who worship the God who is present may ignore the objections of unbelieving men. See, what they see and hear overwhelms their doubts and confirms their assurance beyond the power of argument to destroy. When you encounter Jesus, when you worship the God who is present, who is with us, and that's one of the promises of Scripture, is that Jesus is with us. He'll never leave us nor forsake us. When you worship that God, the discouragement, you can go, you know what? It's okay. I can ignore those who are telling me this is stupid. Because when I've seen and encountered Jesus, when I've tasted and seen that he is good, it gives me the strength to overcome any argument of people telling me I'm dumb. People telling me that I shouldn't believe this. Because when you've encountered that, when you've had that, you can go, yeah, I get it, you don't believe yet, but I'm not going to let you tear me down and take me away from my Jesus. In fact, I'm going to show you what it's like to overcome that and follow him. Watch me. Come follow me. I love that, because when you worship that God, when you have a connection with the God who is with you, who is present, you can go, all the arguments you have against why I shouldn't follow Jesus, you know what? I get it, but I can ignore them because I've actually encountered the real living God, and I know he is with me. So will your desire be greater than any discouragement that comes with you, comes at you? Because here's the thing how the story ends. See, if you go on in the story, after he calls out, Jesus says, bring him to me. Bartimaeus threw aside his coat, he jumped up, and he came to Jesus. Jesus says to him a question that he asks a lot of people in the Gospels when they encounter him. What do you want me to do for you? Jesus asked. He said, my rabbi, which means teacher. The blind man said, I want to see. He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for authority. He didn't ask for power. And actually, it's funny because it's actually in quite contrast to the disciples who just a few verses earlier were asking for authority next to Jesus. He's like, God, I want to see. I want to be able to see again. And Jesus said to him, go, for your faith has healed you. Instantly the man could see, and he followed Jesus down the road. So we see in this part of the story is not only was his courage greater than his condition, not only was his desire greater than his discouragement, but his faith was greater than his fear. And our faith has got to be greater than our fear. See, what you don't realize is when you see that verse where it says he threw off his coat. So a blind person, back in those days, they were given a cloak. They were given a coat. It was more than just to keep them warm. Okay, it wasn't just there so that they could have some places. The cloak was actually a legal garment that was given to them to identify them as a beggar, so they were allowed to sit beside the road and collect from people going by. So when Bartimaeus took his coat and said, Jesus is calling me, he's like, all right, I'm out of here. My microphone. So there we go. He takes it, he throws it, says, I'm going to Jesus. What was he doing in that moment? When he threw his coat off, he was taking all of his financial security, he was taking his identity, everything that defined him, and he was saying, see you later, I'm going to Jesus. Because I know that in this moment, I'm going to be different after I talk to him. After I meet him, I know that he's going to change my life. I know that things will be different. That coat that he just tossed off, and maybe you've read that as kind of just like an aside, that was way more important than oftentimes we give it credit for. He was saying, this thing right here, this used to be my identity. The beggar sitting next to the road, just trying to get by, content with my condition, keeping me down, keeping me back from Jesus, that's no longer who I am anymore. I'm going to not just leave this here in case I need to come back to it. I'm going to throw it so far that I know I'm never going to need it again. Because guess what? I'm going to meet Jesus. Now here's the thing. That takes a lot of faith. Because what if he didn't actually get a chance to talk to Jesus? What if when he called him and he said, I want to see, Jesus was like, no, You don't need to see. And then he's like, okay, well, I got to go try to find my coat again. Can someone help me? You know, he took faith that was greater than his fear, because his fear could have kept him sitting there beside the road. His fear could have kept him sitting there going, you know what? At least I have a stable income. At least my identity allows me to make a little bit of money begging. At least I'm comfortable here enough to know who I am. I know I'm blind. I know I'm kind of cast off, but at least I know that this works for me. It's safe. It's comfortable. This cloak allows me legally to be here to beg. This is my identity. I'm comfortable in my identity. But he said, you know what? I know this is not who I am. And this is my opportunity with the Savior of the world coming through to meet him. And not just to meet him, to come and have my greatest need met by him. Because when Jesus asked him that question, what do you want me to do for you? He says, I want to see. He was meeting one of the deepest needs of his heart there. And Jesus, when he heard that, said, your faith has healed you. And he could see in that moment. And see, his faith had brought him to a place where his fear was not going to hold him back anymore. He could have been afraid of what Jesus said. He could have been afraid of what people thought of him. Right? He could have said, oh man, there's people in the crowd that are sitting in the back going, oh, there's that blind guy. Man, he doesn't know what he's doing. Right? Like sitting back whispering about him. Oh, he thinks Jesus is going to heal his eyes. I mean, come on. Like he could have been afraid of what people thought of him. He could have been afraid of what would happen to his financial security. There's a lot of things that could have held him back. But his faith was greater than all of those things, that he was willing to say, listen, my identity, it's gone, because I know that when I go to Jesus, I will be different forever. It will change everything when I truly encounter the Son of God. And it did. It's funny because you see the juxtaposition of the story. At the beginning, where is he? He's sitting beside the road, like a cast-off, like a reject from community. At the end of the story, after his eyes are opened and he sees Jesus and he encounters him, he's walking with Jesus on the road. He's been removed. He's been brought into relationship. He's been brought into a position where he is made whole and following Jesus now. And he is no longer off to the side being rejected, living in a place that it was hard, it was miserable. He was following Jesus. He was made whole. And he didn't just go, Jesus, thanks for the eyes. I'm out of here. Thanks that I can see again, like some people have done to Jesus, right? He said, wow, now that I heard about you, but now that I've seen you, I can't go back to anything else I've ever done. I have to continue to follow you. And you know, that's exactly what happens to anybody who has an encounter with Jesus, where they truly see and hear the truth of the gospel. When their eyes are opened to who Jesus is, they can't go back to anything else but to follow him where he is leading. And that's what we see Bartimaeus do. His faith was greater than any of the fear he had of what could have been, because he knew who Jesus was. And he was so desperate to encounter him and to know him for real. And many of us, I think, are probably more afraid than we realize, or more afraid than we want other people to know when it comes to following Jesus. I know fear is a huge thing that's been a part of my life, of saying, you know, I know that I should be more taking advantage of these opportunities Jesus gives me to tell people, to show him, to lead people, but I don't know what people are going to think. I'm afraid of what could happen. I'm afraid of this. Like, fear is a major tactic of the enemy to keep us quiet. Be quiet. Don't bother Jesus. Don't tell people about Jesus. Just be quiet. Fear is a major part of that. But when our faith is greater than that and we come to Jesus, we see what he can do, and it changes everything. It changes everything, just like it did for blind Bartimaeus. Remember what I told you his name meant? Son of honor. Jesus restored him to his namesake at the end of this story. He took him from a place of dishonor. He encountered Jesus, and he restored that honor to him of who he was as a son of God. You know, and some of us, I think we've settled for sitting beside the road in our walk with Jesus. I think we've settled for being on the side, being this is as good as it's going to get. God, I know you're real, but I'm not going to go too crazy about this thing. I'm going to play it safe. This is my zone. You know, it's my bubble. I don't walk outside the bubble. I don't leave my little safe Christian bubble right here. And we're good. Me and Jesus were tight. I'll see him in heaven one day. Yeah, and we're content with sitting beside the road. But Jesus is calling us out of that. He's like, let me restore you to the place of honor you're supposed to have had. You've settled for less. You've settled for not who you are. Let me show you who you are. See, I love this verse in Ephesians chapter 2. It says, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. What is that verse saying? Jesus has created all kinds of opportunities for us. That's his job. He creates all kinds of opportunities. He said, this is my responsibility. I will create opportunities for you to encounter me all over the place. He's created them before. He knows who we are. He's created these to say, listen, I made you. Where's workmanship? I made you to encounter me. I made you to see these great things happen as you take these opportunities. Will you do it? Will you walk in them? Will you seize those opportunities that are coming before you like Bartimaeus did? Man, that was his shot. That was his opportunity because Jesus wasn't coming back that way. He said he was going to Jerusalem. That's where he's going to die. That's where everything was going to go down in the Gospels. Bartimaeus may never ever seen him again had he not taken that opportunity. And sometimes one of the things that haunts me the most of the opportunities God's given me that I've missed, that I don't know that I'll ever have again, to tell someone about Jesus, to encourage someone who was down, to pray for someone when they needed it, to help somebody when I could have. Those are the things I'm like, I just wish I would have gone back and, why didn't I do that? I was too busy. I was too self-focused. I was too afraid. But God says, man, there are opportunities around you every single day that I'm giving you to experience how amazing I've made you to be for me. The workmanship I've put in you to encounter me and to help other people do the same thing. Would you walk in them? So as we close the service today, that's what I want to challenge you guys with. Man, if we want to encounter Jesus, our courage has got to be greater than any condition we have that we feel like holds us back from that. Our desire has got to be bigger than any of the discouragement people will try to keep us back and hold us back with. And our faith has got to be greater than any of the fear that we sit in that goes, I can't, God. I'd like to, but I can't. And when we do those things, we can truly have a story like blind Bartimaeus, where we meet and encounter Jesus and everything changes. Everything changes. So what are the opportunities around you? What opportunities are you going to see even today, 5 minutes after this service is over, the rest of this day, the rest of this week? Challenges, will you have your eyes opened to the ways around you? Because every time you take one of those opportunities, it is a chance for a life-altering encounter with Jesus, for you and for whoever you're doing it for. Every time you say yes to Jesus, every time you cry out, Jesus, it is a chance for a life-altering encounter for you and for those around you. It might seem like the smallest, unbelievably, like, no, this isn't going to make one bit of difference for the kingdom. You have no idea what God can do. Through one act of kindness, through one smile, through one hug, through one, hey, can I pray for you? Through one, man, the stories are endless of people whose lives have been changed by one simple, I'm going to grab this opportunity. So as we close, I'm going to invite the worship team to come back up. I just want to challenge us with this. Man, as we go from here, let's be people who grab the opportunities God gives us. Let's learn from blind Bartimaeus in this story, and let's encounter Jesus. Because he's all around, he's doing stuff all around us, and he wants to invite us into those opportunities to say, man, I made you for this. Will you walk with me into these opportunities and seize them? Again, it doesn't matter how old you are, what your age is, they are all around you every day. Will you have eyes to see them? Like Jesus restored blind Bartimaeus' sight, maybe he needs to open your eyes again. Physically you can see, but maybe spiritually you've kind of lost some of that. Maybe he needs to open your eyes again. Maybe today the greatest opportunity in front of you is you've never said yes to Jesus to begin with. Maybe today the greatest opportunity he's presenting to you right in this moment is to say, Lord, I've been doing this thing all by myself. I didn't even know you wanted to be a part of my life. I didn't even know you wanted to help me. I thought I just had to jump through all these hoops to make you happy and maybe I'd get into heaven. And Jesus is saying, whoa, you missed the point, just like his disciples missed who he was. And he's saying right now, the greatest opportunity I have for you right now is to come to me for the very first time and say, Lord, I need you. Jesus, I need you. If that's where you're at, don't miss this opportunity to do that, to leave this place with a relationship with him. Say, Lord, I do need you. Forgive me of my sins. Come into my life. I want to walk with you the rest of my day. I want you to impact my life in ways nothing and no one else ever could. If that's you, don't leave this place before doing that, or come see me. I'd love to pray with you. But if you've been a believer, if you follow Jesus for a while and you're like, man, my eyes have been kind of focused on me, right? I have a friend who calls that a belly button focus, because you're just kind of like looking this way. You're not seeing what God's doing. Maybe in this moment you need to pray that God will open your eyes again for the opportunities that are around you, that you would have courage, that your desire would be greater, and that your faith would be greater, so that you can take advantage of those and see what God does. Man, when we do that, if we're those people, can you imagine Can you just imagine if all of us were living that kind of life where we followed Jesus that way? The courage, the lives that would be changed. It would be unbelievable. The stories we could tell of kingdom expansion, of what God would do, would be amazing. So that's what I want to pray over us as we go, that we would have that kind of courage. We would have that kind of desire. We would have that kind of faith. And we would take advantage of those opportunities that God presents all the time to encounter him. So God, as we close, I thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jesus, that you love us. Thank you so much that you want us to know you. Thank you so much that just like you did for blind Bart, you hear us when we cry out to you. You didn't ignore him. You responded to his cries, God. And I thank you so much that you do that for us. When we cry out to you, God, you hear us. You call us to yourself, God. So in this moment, you might be asking some of us right now, what do you want me to do for you? So I pray in this moment that we would be honest with you. What is it you want God to do for you? What is it you need him to do in your life? I pray you could tell him that right now. And Lord, as we're praying, I just pray you would meet people here. And I pray you would bless everyone in part of this church with courage that is greater than their condition, with a desire that will drown out any discouragement they receive, and with faith that will kick any fear they have to the curb. And they will follow you with everything they have and receive a relationship just like Bart did, just like blind Bartimaeus did, who at the end of the story, he's not blind Bartimaeus anymore. He's just Bartimaeus, son of honor. God, I just pray that we would come into that relationship and the realization with you today, and we would walk out seeing with new eyes and fresh eyes all the opportunities around us to encounter you and to lead people to do the same. I pray. Amen.